Hello everyone, welcome to the session. Today we will discuss about these topics which were in news today. One Yatras in India, population policy, federalism, Indian economy, various revival measures that can be employed, landslide, and refugee policy. In the first page of Hindu, there is a news about decline in vaccination. We have already discussed about types of vaccines and various COVID vaccines belong to which type. The link to that session is given in the description. Please go through it if you haven't already. Next news on the first page is about formation of cabinet committee. From prelims point of view, we need to know that the term cabinet is mentioned in the constitution, but it is not defined. It got mentioned after 44th amendment, which amended article 352 such that president shall not issue a national emergency proclamation without union cabinet conveying their decision to him in writing. In another news, there is news about Uttarakhand rightly suspending Kanwar Yatra to Haridwar, considering COVID-19 situation. Because this is in news, we need to be aware of other yatras in India. Kanwar Yatra is in Uttarakhand. Meru Yatra, Chaitra Yatra, Dola Yatra, Puri Yatra, all are in Odisha. Meru Yatra or Jatra is associated with Dandanatta or a dance or ritual type thing. Chaitra Jatra is observed in Taratarini Hills. That's also in Odisha on the banks of Rushkilia River. Medaram Jatra is a tribal festival in Telangana. We also need to know the Chardham sites, Dwaraka and Puri, which are almost located in the same latitude. Badrinath and Rameswaram, which is in similar longitude. And we also need to know the Chota Chardham sites and Amarnath Yatra, the passes associated with it. And this is not an exhaustive list, you can add on. Next in editorial page, there is an article opposing population policies implemented in states like UP. The article in short says, development or empowerment is best contraceptive. We had discussed major parts on this topic on World Population Day, whose link is given in the description. We can discuss population policy, which was left out in that session. It is important both in prelims and mains point of view. We can define a population policy as a set of measures aimed at affecting fertility, mortality, and migration. It can be just stabilization of population through birth control or by ensuring balanced population by checking over concentration of population in one area. It is in the first national population policy in 1978 that we renamed our family planning programs to family welfare program, from planning to welfare. Current minimum age of marriage was fixed under this. Voluntary sterilization and monetary incentives for sterilization all were introduced under this. This also envisaged use of media for awareness creation, and there was also thrust towards research in reproductive biology and contraceptions under this policy. In 2000, we introduced the second national population policy with the aim of social and economic development and to improve quality of life. It had threefold objective, like to achieve TFR, total fertility rate, to replacement level by 2010. We achieved it in 2020, 10 years late. The second objective was to achieve stable population by 2045. The third was to address unmet needs of contraception, health infrastructure, workforce, and ensure reproductive and child health. So, do we need a new population policy? Yes. Firstly, because there is a wrong perception about population, as it is seen as a creator of all social and economic evils and issues. What happens is this pits weak and downtrodden against privileged sections. In modern world, population is viewed as a resource, as a human resource, provided they are adequately skilled and trained or enough jobs are created. And the reason is that although we have improved IMR and MMR and sex ratio, it is not nowhere near what we want to achieve. we need an improvement still for meeting our SDG goals. And we also see the success of different states are in different levels. Moving on to next article. This article puts federalism against democracy. In federalism, each states matter equally. In democracy, while each state citizen has equal voice, then states with more number of citizens will have more say than the smaller states, which is in contradiction to principle of federalism. However, India is a quasi-federal state, that is, we have unitary bias in constitution. Example, residual powers lie with center, and we have a asymmetric federalism, like different number of seats are in the Rajya Sabha for different states. This article tries to make the case for change in this approach. In this topic, from prelims perspective, we need to know about unitary features in the constitution, federal features in the constitution, features relating to asymmetric federalism. And from mains point of view, we need to know the challenges our federalism faces, like financial autonomy of states, example, non-payment of GST dues, governance issues relating to all India services, legislative issues like that seen in farmer bills. In such questions, we need to provide cooperative federalism and competitive federalism as a way forward. Cooperative federalism can be seen in the passing of GST bills, in which there was consensus among every states. And for competitive federalism, we find that states compete with each other to better themselves, like that in Swachh Sarvekshan, Niti Aayog, ease of doing business index, SDG index, etc. The next article is based on IT rules, broadcasters' rights, etc., which we have already discussed. Please refer the link that is in the description box. Now moving on to next article. The article first puts the current economic condition of India by giving account of increasing in unemployment rate, low business confidence, etc. The author makes the point that we also need to have demand side measures along with the supply side measures, which is taken now to revive the economy. The declining growth was seen even before the pandemic started, and therefore cannot attributed only to COVID. But there are also cyclical and structural reasons behind it. COVID resulted in economic shutdown that resulted in reduced demands and resulted in supply chain disruption and disruption in logistics. It also had financial sector implication because relief measures like moratorium, suspension of insolvency proceedings resulted in rise in NPA, and there was also liquidity crunch. The cyclical factors which comes again and again in this economy include global slowdown, reduction in private consumption, NBFC and banking sector stress. But our economy also have structural issues that led to declining growth. These structural causes include transitional effects of that twin reforms like demonetization and GST, and the infrastructure and logistical issues that is ever present in our economy, and the rigid labor laws along with unskilled labor force resulted in decline of growth rate. So what are the measures taken? One is that Atmanirbhar package that amounts to more than 10% of our GDP, and hand holding of MSMEs, bank recapitalizations, production linked incentive schemes are some. There were cushion for poor and vulnerable through Atmanirbhar Rozgar Yojana, PM Kisan scheme, Atal Bimit Kalyan Yojana, Shram Yogi and Karam Yogi Mandhan scheme. Some of these schemes we need to remember. And along with this, we used this pandemic as an opportunity to introduce some structural reforms in agriculture sectors. We had farm bills, labor codes, and there were consolidation of banks and strategic disinvestments, faceless taxation policies to make our economy more robust for a long-term future. So, what more can be done? Like what that article said, we can loosen up our tight fiscal policy and revive demand to revive growth in the immediate future. Some of the method is by increasing rural demand and consumption through rise in rural wages, which can be implemented by increasing number of days of work in MG Narega or increasing wages in MG Narega. Next article, upholding trust in vaccination, is on countering vaccine hesitancy, which again is discussed before. Link is in the description. But in the article, the points under the last heading, acting prudently, can also be noted down along with the early discussion points. In the data point column given in the Hindu newspaper, this particular fact can be useful while writing in an answer. Like only 25% of the teachers have basic computer training. That can be added to your notes on issues of online education. Moving on to next news, there is a news about landslide in the news. From Main's perspective, we need to learn about definition, causes, impacts, and measures that can be taken with respect to landslides. Landslide can be defined as rapid movement of rock, soil, or vegetation down the slope under the influence of gravity. A figure of a landslide prone area should be drawn when asked in means. As you can see in the figure that Himalayas, northeastern part and western Ghats of India are the vulnerable areas. Causes of landslide include heavy rain, earthquake, or it may be caused by man-made causes such as human interference, illegal mining, quarrying, illegal constructions, etc. On impacts, landslide can result in loss of life, property, change in landscape, loss of cultivable land, change in course of rivers. There may be social impacts like environmental refugees, etc. These impacts can be divided as short term or long term or environmental, economic, or social as you wish. And on mitigation measures, we can write same thing that can be written in any disaster management question, like vulnerable mapping, early warning system, strict implementation of existing laws, restrictions on construction and other developmental activities, following NDMA guidelines, etc. Dr. Chandrachud's opinion about anti-terror law is in news. In this context, we need to have an idea about UAPA laws, which is all discussed already. Link is in the description box. In another news, we have news about Bhutan getting its second dose of vaccines from the Washington, European Union, etc. We have already discussed India-Bhutan relation in one of our previous sessions. Please go through the link in the description box. There is another heartwarming news. Arunachal officials trekking 9 hours to vaccinate a mere 16 races. It shows each one is important in good governance, and democracy is also for few, not only for the majority. It can also be used as an example in our governance or ethics answer. Moving on to next topic, there is a news about crackdown on Bangladeshi immigrants in Tamil Nadu. In this context, we can discuss India's refugee policy or lack of refugee policy. So, who is a refugee and who is a migrant? We need to have an idea about that. Refugees are persons who are unwilling to return to their country owing to a well-founded fear of persecution or death. Migrants stay in the migrated country mainly to improve their lives. So, does India have laws dealing with illegal immigrants? Yes, we have. Our Citizenship Act 1955 defines who is an illegal immigrant, and they can be deported as per Foreigners Act or Passport Act. Do we have laws or policy regarding the refugee? No, we don't have at present. India is not even a signatory to UN Refugee Convention 1951, but India is a signatory to UN Declaration of Human Rights. A consistent refugee policy is needed to categorize refugees and illegal immigrants. We can't have ad hoc measures every time, and there should be a standard operating procedure and which every state can follow. A legal status for migrants or refugees can result in better monitoring and thus bring down criminal activities done by them. Moreover, there is also a line of thought that India needs to stop seeing borders as walls of protection and see it as a door to exchange of goods and people for better prosperity of the subcontinent. Thank you for listening. Take care and be safe.